want to talk about, let's start really general. Some of these are going to be repetitive from last time we chatted. Tell me about how long you've been in Austin, sort of like what got you here. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I've been here since middle school. I love Austin. My family moved back in halfway through COVID. Rent got really expensive. It'd be cheaper to move over to Louisiana. I did not want to leave Austin. I made all my friends here. I love the city, so I decided to stay and lived here with Miss Kim. And I've just been on my own since then. And I just love Austin. I've fallen in love with the music scene here, the downtown, the food, everything about Austin. I love it. I couldn't imagine living in any other city.
How's that been to kind of have like some family away from family?
Yeah, it's something I'm used to. I think people tend to be very nice, and Miss Kim is one of the nicest people I've ever met. I met her son through school. We became close friends, and Miss Kim just kind of took in everybody, not just me, but anybody who needed help with anything at any time. Everybody knows you can go to Miss Kim. A bunch of our friends, we all work for her at like a pizza place when I was in high school. She's just super great, super kind, super welcoming. So it was a pretty easy transition to live here with her.
Obviously, moving into the day at the park, very popular park. It's obvious for people to frequent that often. You just headed down there for a little day. Like, tell me about the day.
Yeah, it was just kind of a chill morning. I didn't want to go do anything particularly. I didn't want to go on like a big long hike. I wasn't super energetic. I just wanted to get outside, feel the wind, see the water, just have a nice little walk to kind of be productive up in the morning, just get my blood pumping. And it's real pretty down there in Austin. I love seeing the skyline.
Yeah, you're right there in the middle of the city.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so pretty. And I just figured it'd be a nice, pretty walk, and it was for 90% of the walk. It was very nice and pretty. It was just a little cold.
And I want to talk about where this all happened, and I'll have you describe it. But I mean, you're right there, smack in the middle of of Auditorium Shores. Like, there's the city. There's obviously a lot of people right there. So how did this even come about? Like, how did you even see this man coming at you?
It's crazy because I hadn't seen him. The first time I walked down the trail, I had seen him lying down next to one of those little buildings where they keep all the like electrical equipment and stuff. And I just passed by him like we do here in Austin. And as I was coming back to my car, I didn't notice him. I didn't see him. Didn't know anything. I just heard somebody running up behind me, and then boom, just felt like I got hit in the back.
You talked about also, it's kind of human nature and reaction to shield anytime, and I think we see.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's coming out of absolutely nowhere, and I hate to have you recount it, but I mean, he got you here. I think you said he mentioned. Did you have a jacket on?
I did. I had 2 jackets on. It was pretty cold.
Talk about just that unfortunate. I mean, it was like going on for a minute, right?
Yeah, it was probably a minute, 2 minutes worth of altercation. It was pretty nonstop. The only breaks I got in between being swung at were when I was able to run away, at least before tripping and falling. But yeah, I got cut all up on my arms. This one a lot, multiple times all across here. It's pretty grotesque. And I have to keep it in this sling thing, along my arm. Hit my head like 4 times, across my back, along both of my knees the long way. I'm lucky, very lucky, after the amount of different times he hit me and swung at me that, I walked away with just this.
Yeah. You said something last time that really struck me. There was like a moment, it seemed of almost clarity for who we now know as Mr. Talley. You said it almost seemed like there was going to be a second where he stopped. Can you kind of recount that a little bit?
Yeah, he had hit me the first couple of times, and I'd realized what was going on, so I started running. But I lost my balance. I didn't realize I was cut along my back, and I ran too fast, slipped forward, and now I'm face first in the gravel, and I hear him coming up behind me, and I don't know why he's doing this. And so I ask, I just kind of plead out to him, like, why are you doing this? Like, what's going on? What did I do? And that's where he had the machete raised over his shoulder, and he just paused for a second. I mean, it couldn't have been longer than like a second or 2 seconds, where it just looked like he looked almost sad for just a second, and then he just swung again.
We also ended up connecting with the man that called 911, and then he started getting chased.
Yes.
By the psychopath. And so, talk to me a bit about that. You're right there in the middle of a bunch of people. Do you? I mean, and I know someone actually ripped their shirt off, made a tourniquet for you. Do you attribute that to honestly helping save your life?
Absolutely. Mr. Curtin, the man who called 911, absolutely. He is one of the. Without him, I would be dead. Almost certainly. I mean, the man who was attacking me wasn't going to stop, which is one thing. I mean, I had even at one point tried to play dead in hopes that he would kind of just leave, but he certainly would have kept going if Mr. Curtin did not distract him and get him away from me. So I absolutely owe him my life, and the other people who came to my side as I was laying there, who tied a tourniquet around me, and who kept me from giving up in that moment. It felt, to me, certain that I was going to die. I mean, just looking at the amount of blood that had surrounded me, I'd been hit in my head like 4 times. I was certain that, I tried my best, and that's it, right? But those people assured me, and they had seemed so certain that I would be fine, that I would make it, that they almost convinced me, and I'd felt much better about actually making it. I'd fought to stay awake, and to not lose consciousness, and I didn't. And it's because those people convinced me that it was absolutely worth fighting for, that I absolutely did have a chance, and I did get really lucky. So
that's my question too. One can imagine that you're going to have almost like a blackout episode when that happens, or like you said, you're slipping from consciousness. Tell me how it was in terms of, this is going to be obviously very blurry, but once you're being attacked to EMS, I think they got there somewhat pretty quick. Those moments right there, I know it's kind of repetitive because you talked about it, but did it feel like time was much slower, or how did that feel?
Honestly, it was not very different than normally sitting there. It took maybe 10 minutes for them to get there. It didn't feel very long. I was just kind of laying down. It didn't hurt very much. It was almost peaceful, just scary. But I had all these people around me. They were talking to me, and the longer that they talked to me, had me focus on them and their voice, the more I kind of lost track of how long I was waiting there, and the faster it seemed that the ambulance came. They certainly helped the time pass.
Yeah. I want to move into now. Sorry, I'm asking like 80,000 questions. Let's talk about the hospital visit. So you were, obviously at one of the best hospitals. So you get to the hospital. I'm sure still you're in a lot of shock. Tell me about your visit. How long were you there? And then also, if you just want to go ahead, one of my other questions was just running through some of the surgeries. I'm sure you were rushed into some emergency surgeries.
Yeah. I think I got to the hospital very quickly. I mean, I was pretty close. And I think in the ambulance on the way there, they had given me some fentanyl, and I felt super sick. So for the first 30 minutes or so, I was fighting nausea more than anything, and I eventually just threw up all over the place. And then after that, it was kind of a waiting game as they were getting all of the surgeons prepared for surgery and everything like that. And so I was kind of sitting on this table, just trying to make sure that the nurses knew where all of my cuts were. They had put a much tighter tourniquet on my arm. That was probably the most painful part of the whole process.
Which is interesting because you talk about like you were almost peaceful when you were there, so all the nausea and stuff kind of was like distracting your mind almost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But after I got in the hospital, the adrenaline had worn down, and I'm sitting there waiting for the surgery. That's when it really started to hurt, and I was just I'd actually never gone into a surgery before, so I was very afraid, kind of nervous. They hadn't explained to me what my injuries looked like because they didn't fully know yet. So I had no idea, how bad the head trauma would be, anything like that. So I was just kind of nervous that, I still might not wake up from a surgery or something like that. It was definitely still a very scary experience, but the nurses were so kind. I remember at one point I had asked them to take some pictures for my Instagram, and they absolutely obliged, and they actually took some pretty good pictures with my phone. They took my phone and played my Spotify for me to just keep me calm and while I waited for the surgery. So the nurses at the hospital were some of the kindest people I've ever met. Just throughout this experience, it's been marked by so many kind people going out of their way to help me. And I've just been so appreciative.
In specific, I know you mentioned he hit a bunch of your arteries, and I want to talk about your recovery moving forward now. So it's actually extremely impressive. What are we, like a week and a half, 2 weeks out, if that?
I think 3 weeks.
Maybe 3 weeks, okay, yes, I don't know. But that alone, you're like, so much mobility, things like that. I know you said like that arm is obviously a bit more beat up, but what does recovery look like going forward? I think you mentioned last time maybe numbness in your fingers, and that was going to take some time.
Yes, so the ulnar nerve, which is responsible for my pinky and half of my ring finger, it was severed in 3 different places. So I don't have much feeling in my ring finger, and my pinky finger is completely numb. We're hoping that after Dr. Eklund has repaired these, which he has, that after some physical therapy and occupational therapy, I'll be able to get feeling back in those hands. I've been able to, exercise this hand a little bit, getting the fingers to move ever so slightly. But this hand, certainly, there's a lot of work to do. It's going to be weeks of physical therapy and occupational therapy to get everything back to normal because the nerves were severed. This is the arm where the artery was severed. So there's a lot of damage that is going to take a while to repair from, or to recover from. This hand has been doing really well. I have pins in my fingers.
Yeah, I was going to ask, tell me.
To keep the bones in place because they were shattered. But other than that, I didn't receive any nerve damage in this arm. So I've been able to move. Yesterday I was able to pick up a fork with these 2 fingers to eat on my own, which was very nice. It was relieving. And the wounds on my arms have been healing super well. I didn't expect it to go as well as it has. So everything has been moving along pretty steadily. I'm very mobile. I have cuts along my knees, but they only really hinder my ability to squat down really low or anything like that. But in terms of being able to get up and walk around, I'm pretty mobile. It's just going to be getting this arm back to its normal function.
So does it sound almost, and the hope is essentially a full recovery?
We can't know for sure yet, but at the very least, 90% of my function in this hand is going to be absolutely able to recover, and hopefully with the occupational therapy and physical therapy, we'll get everything back to working and feeling and everything. But that will just kind of, we'll have to see how the nerve takes to healing.
I mean, you almost died. So to go from that to knowing that you have a really good potential to 90 to 100% recovery, how does that feel mentally?
It almost doesn't feel real. I can't really wrap my head around almost dying or recovering. It feels like it was just a bad dream, I guess. And I just woke up with a couple casts on.